Tested.
Hey guys, Will from Tested.
Norm from Tested.
We're here today with Apps of the Week for the Android platform.
Android. You got apps? How many apps do you have?
Like 10.
We'll show
3.
5 today. Let's do it.
Oh, I'm doing 5?
Is it 5?
5. Let's take a look at Wi-Fi Analyzer.
Does it do exactly what it sounds like it does?
It does exactly what it says it does. So if you can see, these are all the Wi-Fi access points around our office. It tells you what channel they're on, what channel they overlap. So see, Whiskey Public is using 6, but it's overlapping to 8 and 4 because the way Wi-Fi spectrum works. You can do all sorts of other stuff. You can, it'll look and see what the actual signal strength is for a particular access point, and of course, lower decibel is better because you're looking at signal to noise ratio.
This graph is right, so moving to the green is better.
Exactly. You can list all the things. Basically, what this does is tells you which channels are good in the area you're in. So, like channel 11 is usually a good channel. It is here. Channel 3 is pretty occupied though, so not so much here. So Wi-Fi Analyzer is great. It's free. I think you can donate to support it. It'll show signal strength over time.
Very good.
It's not something you're going to use every day, but when you need it, when you're setting up a new access point, very, very handy. Okay, the next tool is something that Ryan talked about in his Android Picks of the Week this last week. It's called Rockplayer. It's basically it's a great way to play movies, and it played everything I threw at it, which is kind of unusual on Android.
Some examples of what?
So it plays MKVs, MP4s, H.264 encodes, VC1, all sorts of different. Of course, you can fast forward and rewind, skip.
That's pretty fast.
I didn't want to get to a saucy bit there. We're watching The Room. I recall a saucy bit, but the image quality is not perfect. It depends on what codec you're using to encode. It uses, I think, FFmpeg to decode. It's a good alternative, and it was free. You can donate to support it.
So,
you're putting free to try.
Right. So you can see the watermark in the top left-hand corner.
Right.
So you're putting like DVD rips on here. Can it handle like an HD file?
What do you mean?
Like, can it handle a file with a high bit rate and a high resolution?
So this is a file. This is a high bitrate DVD rip because this is something I ripped a long time ago. It's a 2.5 megabit rip. Like I said, it took all the things I threw out. Of course, it won't play anything that's DRM protected. So things you bought from the iTunes store, things you bought from Amazon won't work. I didn't actually try WMV because I don't have any WMV files anymore. The next one is a SMS tool replacement. Handcent SMS seems to be the most popular SMS replacement on the settings screen here for whatever reason. But you can see it's basically just a better SMS tool than the one that comes with.
Looks a lot like iPhone's iChat one.
It's very similar to iOS. Let's see, what do we? Okay, this is pretty exciting. But it'll show your picture if you have that set up. I haven't actually done that yet on this phone. It shows the picture that's associated with the contact. So this pulls your Facebook icon.
Very cool.
So you can go and see the whole stuff. It works really well. It's fast. I like it better than the default on this Captivate. I don't know how I feel about it compared to the stock Android SMS client, but it's pretty good and it's relatively inexpensive.
And does MMS also?
Does MMS as well. The next app we're going to take a look at is Watchdog. Ryan talked about this in one of his columns this week. It's actually a really good replacement for task killers, which are kind of used to be a necessary evil on Android.
Monitoring.
Yeah, so exactly. Instead of just randomly killing apps when they're misbehaving, what Task Killer does is actually looks at and sees how much CPU they're using. I'm sorry, Watchdog, thank you. What Watchdog does is actually looks and sees how much CPU and how much resources they're using, and then alerts you to that behavior and lets you choose whether to delete it or shut it down or not.
Can you set thresholds for
you can control all sorts of stuff. You can, if you want to get crazy granular, you can go into the preferences. You can see how often it pulls. You can see what the threshold is to see, whether it's 80%, 20%, whatever. And of course, on a mobile phone, the CPU usage really is directly tied to battery life. So the more CPU it uses in the background, the little shorter your battery life.
Here's an interesting question. Is Watchdog itself in the list?
Watchdog is in the list. And Watchdog is in the foreground. The green apps are foreground apps or high priority apps. Of course, when we close Watchdog, it will stop being a green app, but it's going to still stay in the list. So if Watchdog starts to misbehave, who watches the watcher? And all my apps are behaving nicely, so no apps misbehaving. And then this is the last thing. This tells you, this stats page tells you kind of just what's going on, how much memory is being used, how much CPU is being used, how much the CPU is off, and just general kind of scary Linuxy stuff down here if you're interested in that whole thing. So that's Watchdog. Its light version is free, or you can pay for a non-ad version if you're so inclined. We're going to look at just one Android game this week. This is called Picacross. It's going to load.
Pick a nose.
Pick a Nose is a funny name. So Picacross, in case you didn't guess it, is well, it's inspired by the Nintendo DS and GBA game Picross. So what you do is basically it's a puzzle game. There's this giant grid of numbers, which you can see here.
Very intimidating.
And you have to look at this and see, oh, okay, there's 10. These numbers on the sides tell you how many of the squares are filled in on any given line or column.
Yes.
And then you have to fill in from there. So like this is 11, so that means there's 11 in this column. They're all adjoining each other, so I know.
Are there more numbers?
That's when there's multiple sets of things. So for example, this means that there's 2 that are grouped together, then there's some indeterminate period of space, and there's 1, then there's a more indeterminate period of space, and then there's 4. So from that, I can tell that these bottom are 4. There's 4 on the bottom. Somewhere up here, there's going to be 2. I don't know exactly where that is. But you can kind of go back and there's some deductive reasoning and all that stuff. It's kind of like Sudoku, but not quite so dumb. And, you know, it's a kind of fun puzzly game.
All right, so those were our apps. Which one was my favorite?
Appstravaganza?
The video player.
Was it an Appstravaganza?
It was app fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. Is it Appalicious?
All right, let's stop right now.
Are we riding an Appaloosa pony?
All right, I'm going away.
Bye, guys.